Hi, my name is Luna, and this is the time I had 4 ayahuasca ceremonies in Costa Rica. Okay, so my other 2 videos had it was a one-night trip, and there was a big bang, and it was a story. This trip was 7 nights, 4 different ayahuasca ceremonies, so I'm not too sure how I want to relay that information. There's 2 big dragonflies flying around. So I'm just gonna start at the beginning. I've always wanted to do ayahuasca. The moment I found out about DMT, it was probably over a decade ago. I saw a documentary and I found out that ayahuasca's main component was dimethyltryptamine. And I loved that it came out of the Amazon and it was these indigenous people partaking in it, and it connected them to other worlds, and it was just beautiful, and I knew I wanted to have that experience, but my ego mind made up stories about finances and the distance, and I just never thought it'd be a possibility. A couple months before the trip, I was just not having a good time in my life, and I knew I needed some deep work to be done that I couldn't access myself. And I had been researching different companies that hold these retreats, and I found one called Soltara, and they have a location in Costa Rica. And I sat on that for a while until one day I came home from a little mini vacation, and I just didn't want to be at my apartment. I just knew I needed to book this trip. So I filled out the form over 5 times, and every time I got to the payment section, I just couldn't go through with it. I had the funds, I had the time, but I kept making excuses. Then I finally booked it, paid for it, and the moment I did that, I started to cry and laugh. Like, it was such a strange emotional release I had. Like, I had been dying to do this forever, and now it's real. And my response was crying and laughing. So I knew that was a really, really good sign. I had an intake call with one of the facilitators there at Soltara, and me and her hit it off immediately. She told me about her experiences with the medicine, and a cool sync was she's from Phoenix, I'm from Phoenix. It was just all these good signs kept happening. The day of the trip came, and I asked my guides, my God, heal me, show me what I need to be shown, lead me, have a great trip. I also specifically asked for, I'm obsessed with Bigfoot, so I asked Bigfoots to make themselves known. I knew I was taking medicines that would put me into their field, so I just asked for their blessing. I get on the plane, I was a layover in, I believe it was Texas, and I get off the plane, and the first thing I see is this man wearing this psychedelic Bigfoot shirt, and I was like, that's amazing. And I maybe had like an hour or so for my next flight to Costa Rica. So I'm looking for a smoothie. I just want a smoothie. And I see the only place that had smoothies, and I'm waiting in line, and there's this gentleman, and he keeps letting people cut him. Like, oh, you can go ahead of me. And I thought that was really sweet. So when he turned to me and told me that I could go ahead of him, I told him that was okay. I told him I was deciding on 2 drinks, 2 smoothies, this and that one. And he's like, oh, that's funny, because I'm getting that drink for my wife, that smoothie that you're contemplating. So he lets me go ahead of him, and I buy myself that smoothie and his wife that smoothie, and I let him know, like, hey, I got your wife's smoothie. He thought that was so sweet. So we're waiting in line for the smoothies, and he asks me what I'm doing, where I'm going. I tell him I'm going to Costa Rica to see God, to do ayahuasca. And he's like, I want you to meet my wife. So he leads me to this woman sitting down, and apparently she's an author, and she carries around this book about God and coincidences and synchronicities. And she's like, do you mind if I give it to you? And of course, like, if the universe gives you a book, you should read that book. Then she asks if I can pray for you. So I'm in this airport with these 2 strangers, and this woman is praying, and I just start crying, because I love moments like that. Like, you can't buy that. that's some aligned magic right there. And it was just another sign that I'm on the right path. So we get to Costa Rica, and I have a night to kill before the company picks us all up. We're all supposed to meet at this specific hotel. So I passed out early. I wake up, I go to the lobby, and I'm waiting there. And a woman comes and finds me, and she brings me out, and the whole group is there. And I'm kind of a shy person, believe it or not. So there's probably about like 15 or 20 people that are on this retreat. And we get separated in 2 buses, and each bus, the company sign is an infinity symbol, and I love the infinity symbol. I also love the number 8 because it's the same symbol, just upright. So they divide us, and we're on the bus, and it's probably like an hour to get to a ferry, and the ferry leads us to a little island, and then we take that same van to go to the retreat. So everyone's getting to know each other and talking about their past experiences with psychedelics and what they do and yada yada yada. And again, I'm shy. I'm just sitting in the back. I'm not very vocal about what I do because it's just not something I like to talk about, but I'm open to it. So we get off the tram, we get on the ferry, and the ferry is gorgeous. And let me backtrack a little bit. I went on this retreat for the sole purpose to heal my relationships with masculine energy, you know, specifically an ex and my father. My ex and I always just like kept hurting each other really, really badly. And I just didn't understand why we couldn't make that work. And with my father, I hadn't spoken to him in, I want to say 15 years. It was a long time. He raised us, my brother and I, and I always had like animosity towards him. I was very resentful towards him. I didn't like him. I was afraid of him. I didn't like being in the same room as him. That's a tough. And then some things happened in my family, and he got I just didn't see him for a long time. So prior to this trip, I wanted to do some like pre-work. So I called him to schedule like a lunch date just so we could talk face to face, and I wouldn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting in my psychedelic journey because I knew this was something that was going to happen, get brought up. So I just wanted to address it on my own. I'm very grateful I did because that was a big theme going into my medicine journeys. Okay. So we get off the ferry, we take the bus, we get to the location, we have a group meeting where we introduce ourselves, and it's very vulnerable because you are essentially all strangers at this point. And one of the first group shares was talking about what you wanted to heal. So we went around a circle, and every person was just telling their deepest traumas. You know, that's not something a lot of people just willingly share. And it was so freeing to just like witness everyone expressing themselves and like releasing that burden I'm sure they've been holding. And for me, like being a trans woman that does sex work, like there's a lot of, what's a better word for trauma? There's a lot of hardships that come with that. Like it's not always an easy life going through that journey, but being able to sit in front of all those people and just kind of share my life story was so cool. Like I was kind of terrified like when it became my turn, but after sharing and like obviously crying in front of these people, I was like, I'm ready for this first night. So after that, we did another little group activity where it's called a vomitivo. So they brew this lemongrass tea, and they have us 4 at a time chug this tea. And the idea is lemongrass is another plant medicine. It's a light energy, and if you consume enough, it will make you purge it out. And what that will do is open the channels to further help the plant medicine journey that you're about to embark on. It's kind of like a pre-workout. It gets the channels flowing. So they let us know prior that it'd be a little bit uncomfortable, but if you drink enough, your body will naturally purge this lemongrass tea. So it's finally my turn, and I'm thinking this is gonna be easy. So I'm on glass number 5, and they said it was gonna be uncomfortable, but I was in real pain. It hurt so bad. I chug my 6th one, and I'm miserable, and I'm pissed that it's not coming out of me. And it's like on a little fence post, and we're throwing up into the forest below, and one of my spirit guides is bees, and a little bee lands right on the post. And I also use it to symbolize the partner I went there to heal from. So it was kind of like, I got this, I'm protected, I'm guided. So it was my 6.5 cup that I finally start to purge, and it was such a relief. But what was crazy, it was like my whole body was soaked. I was wet everywhere. Like I drank so much that my pores were pushing out this lemongrass. And it was a nice icebreaker because we were about to all throw up in front of each other that night. So this was like a, get it out of your system. Okay, everyone's throwing up in front of each other. Like it's no big deal. So an hour before the ceremony, those shamans, they fly out shamans from Peru who have worked with the ayahuasca spirit for a long, long time. And they give us a flower bath. So they have this tub of water with oils, essential oils and flowers. And it's essentially a baptism. They're baptizing us. And two at a time, we sit and they give us a flower bath. And it was really beautiful. And they let us know, like, you can dry off with a towel, but you want to air dry, preferably. You want to keep the oils on you. You want to keep the flowers on you. It's good energy for the trip. So we go to it's called a maloka. It's like a giant teepee. That's where we would be having the ceremony. And we do a nice yoga session beforehand, which was incredible. And then we all get to our mats. All our mats were labeled for us. And lo and behold, my mat was number 8, like the infinity symbol. And I thought that was a really cool synchronicity. And I'm not nervous. I'm not scared. Like, I'm ready. Like, let's do this. I don't know what to expect. I have ideas in my head because I listen to a lot of YouTube stories. So I was under the impression that I would lose consciousness almost and kind of just like blast my awareness off into the universe, which did not happen. So the shamans come in and we're all supposed to be quiet. There's no speaking. They sit in the middle. It's such a cool vibe to witness and like be in. And they sit back to back with 2 facilitators next to them, like camp counselors. And they're smoking on tobacco, which we were all given, like authentic little cigars filled with natural tobacco, and that's supposed to help your trip. If your trip's not blasting off, you can smoke the cigar and it will. They call it the father. Ayahuasca is the mother's, tobacco would be the father, and they go in hand. So we sit there for a moment, and then they pick the first person, and we go around in a circle. So the first night, we were only allowed to take 1 shot glass, and I don't remember what the ounces. I believe it was 2 ounces, but I could be completely wrong. It was a little shot glass. Because first night is basically them seeing what you can handle. They're trying to get our dosages right. They don't want us to like lose all awareness and be all crazy, but they want it to affect us. So we go around in a circle, and that was kind of nerve-wracking, like to wait, because like the person, it was just nerve-wracking. So it finally gets to me, and I take my cup, my shot glass, and they say that ayahuasca tastes really bad, but I guess the shamans all brew it differently, but what I took was delicious. I don't think that now, but first night I thought it was really good. It was like thick espresso. It was like kind of chocolatey. It was a little sweet. It was good. So you sit in front of them, they ask you how much you want to take. Well, they don't do that the first night. You just take it, and then you go back and you sit there. And you guys sit in silence for maybe like 30 minutes. And it's pitch black in this maloka. It's like a giant tent, like I said. You can hear the night. So you can hear bats, and you can hear geckos, and you can hear little night owls or birds, whatever was out there. And you can hear, we're right by the beach, so you can hear the ocean crashing. So it was such it was so cool. And then finally, from the center, the shamans start singing. They sing what's called ikros, which is basically a prayer. It's their version of prayer. And they were two men. And the music was so captivating and like magical. Like the moment the first one started to sing, I purged. And I can throw up quietly, so I don't think anyone heard me. But it was very interesting. And then what they do is one goes to one end, like at 6 o'clock, and one goes to like 12 o'clock. And they sing to us individually. Apparently because they're on the medicine too, so the medicine shows what our systems specifically need, and they tailor the Icaros to us. And through the frequency and vibration of their voice, they're basically like blasting into our chakras, or system, or body, or soul. And you're supposed to sit upright and like take it. So the music was incredible. I can't state that enough. It was just the coolest sounds. I wish I understood what they were saying. It got to my turn. Well, first off, the first time they started singing the Icaros, they started to the man on my right, Sage. Hi, Sage. And the shaman sits down in front of him, and he's smoking on the cigarette. So it's pitch black. I know there's a human there. There's a mass, but all I can see is the red embers of his cigar. And I thought that visually was like so like, they're like wizards. They're magicians. They're shamans. It was just really, really cool to witness. And I should have been in my own world, but I was paying attention to the interaction next to me. I just thought it was beautiful. And throughout the night they go through. They do the whole circle, each of them, and then they sit in the middle. And at the end, they close the ceremony. So the shamans dictate when the energy has subsided. So first night in particular, I, again, didn't know what to expect. I can't compare it to any other psychedelics. I think my brain was thinking like that. It was very mild for me. I had slight visuals. One moment was very closed eye visuals of like kaleidoscopes, like it was multiple images flashing, and one of the most profound one was there was a masculine male Bigfoot, and he winked at me, which that was the most peculiar thing, because if my mind just generated a Bigfoot image because I asked for it, I don't think I would have put the wink in. The wink was very specific, and I wouldn't have thought of that. So it was, to me, it was a real Bigfoot that heard my wish, my prayer, and came and visited me and gave me like I heard you, I'm here. And that was really cool, because that's all I really wanted. So there's no overwhelmment, there's no crazy like blasting off, there's not a really profound visuals besides that. So they closed the ceremony pretty early that night, and I was one of the first ones to walk out. And there's a whole grassy area, and that's really what I wanted all night. I wanted to connect my feet to the earth. And again, we're by the beach in the Costa Rican jungle, so the light pollution is non-existent, so you can see every freaking star in the sky. And I just sat in the grass and just looked at the stars, and there were lightning bugs everywhere. So it was just like, I was so in love with the moment. I was so in love with myself. I was so proud of myself. I was so like, yay, we did the first night. I saw Bigfoot. Like, that was amazing. So, second night comes, and we're allowed to up our dose. So I should have done more, but I only did a cup and a half. And you're allowed to get seconds during a certain time frame. But I didn't that night. So night two was interesting because I was having dreams prior with my partner, and one of the dreams I had before ceremony was I saw him at this restaurant and he was with someone else, and it angered me. And in the distance there was this giant fat little devil with a club, and he was knocking down buildings. And in the dream, I couldn't care less about this giant monster knocking down buildings. I was more concerned with my ex and kind of attacking him. So when I went into night two, I realized, oh, that devil that I saw in my dream is a aspect of me. That a majority of my life, I have been this aggressive, large devil with a stick just knocking things over, because it's easier for me to be mean than it is for me to be soft and vulnerable. And that was a huge game changer. I had a really cool vision that night, night two, where it was myself as a little child and my partner on the beach, and we were little kids and we were playing. And that was just such like it was just beautiful to witness that, you know, because I firmly believe we all need to love our inner child and allow that little kid to come out more. You know, I think society hardens us, and we are too serious all the time, and we should be more focused on playfulness and having fun and being in the moment. So after night two, we have a break, which was awesome. I went to the beach, worked out, read. That day, though, we had another group share that we all got to talk about our previous two trips. And that was really cool to listen to everyone. Like, it was the most, I was so, like, attentive and just actively listening. Like, I just wanted to hear everyone's experience. A lot of the experiences were really, really cool. Some people had really rough nights. You know, again, everyone is throwing up. Some people are going number two. I luckily didn't, but like, some people can't throw up quietly either. So you can hear people like aggressively like purging. You also can hear people giggle. I giggled a bunch, but then I'm trying to be mindful and not be loud with it. So night three comes. Night three was the most interesting. So night three, I took 2 cups. And I sat, there was like these like rocking chairs that we had on our mats. So I sat in that all night, upright, and I was just kind of rocking back and forth, and it felt pleasurable. And there was a moment during that trip where all my previous trips with mushrooms and DMT and acid somehow got like rolled into one, and I felt the intensity of all of those into one, where it became a little overwhelming for my body, and the moment became too much. My whole body dissolved, disintegrated, and the moment it felt like trillions of particles of me just, And the moment I felt that, I purged the most out of all of the nights. It was instantaneously dissolve and then just throw up. And that's what you want to do. You want to be throwing up because you have all this emotional sludge and like this old energies of unprocessed traumas and events and just shit inside you that you're carrying around. So when you purge, what you're doing is releasing all that. You're opening up all that to flow out of you. So it's like you want to throw up. So after that, I felt nothing. I felt completely sober, and I had opportunity to take more, and I was like struggling with like going to take more. Like, I don't know if I was like nervous to go up or I was nervous to ask for what I wanted, and what I wanted was more. But I don't know if I thought I was like a burden or whatever. I got over that, and we all are supposed to bring red lights. If you need something, you shine the red light on you. So I shined it on me. One of the facilitators came and she walked me to take more, and I took another half cup. So I took 2.5 shot glasses that night. And I got back into my mat and nothing really happened. So I was kind of expecting like the medicine to like do all the work for me. And since nothing was happening, I was like, okay, let me see if I can do something. And previously that day at the beach, there's all these little, maybe like 3 little islands that I can see from the beach. And I was like, I want to go to those islands. So I was on my mat, and I guess you would call it astral projecting, where I flew to the island. And I was just like jumping peak to peak. And it felt really visceral. It felt real. It felt very vibrant. It wasn't like translucent. Like I was in 2 different places, and it felt real. And then what I started to do, I parted the ocean at one moment. I started to spin and like dive down into the sand to make little holes. And I did that so deep that I encountered this like human rat thingy, and they weren't individual nails. It was like one big nail, and it was diamonds. It was sparkly. And again, I don't know, my brain wouldn't have made that type of creature. I don't know. I feel like my brain wouldn't have made that creature, but that happened. I was like, okay, like let's see if I can fly to the moon. Like, I'm having fun in the sand. I want to feel the texture of the moon. So I somehow went to the moon, and I was playing in the sand, and it was very silky soft. And then I was like, I want to go to the other side of the moon. So I flew there, and the other side of the moon had this like red dome base, like this force field. And I flew and I penetrated the force field, and the moment I did that, I couldn't fly anymore, and I fell and I landed on the ground. And there were like buildings everywhere, and I landed by this doorway, and the doorway opened, and there was all this light, and there was a woman in like a lab coat. I can't really see her face, but I knew it was a woman, and she had like 2 little beings, and they dragged my body into this building. And the moment that happened, I got transported back into my body. So that I'm still confused about, because that was all like me just doing it. That makes sense. Like, the medicine didn't send me on this journey. It was just my choice. But it was fascinating that I could not fly anymore. Like, the whole experience I could fly, but the moment I penetrated this force field, I could not fly. So that was it for night 3. Again, after the night, I go outside and I stand in the grass, and I'm just like in awe of the stars, where we are, the sounds of the jungle. It was just incredible. And then night 4, I did again 2 cups. And night 4 was the hardest for me in terms of, I don't know how sometimes you get in loops in psychedelics where you feel kind of stuck, and I was vibrating this whole time, which felt incredible, but I was mentally stuck in this like pattern, but I was still cognizant that I was safe and God loves me and I'm protected and I can handle this. And one of the people I really bonded with, Mark, he popped up he was maybe like 4 or 5 people away from him, and I was kind of sad and I wanted Mark to like hug me and hold me. And another woman, Katie, who reminded me of my mother. She was very independent and kind of hard, like not really afraid to be open, and like feminine, like very like she's protected herself and took care of herself all her life, like she was very in her masculine, and I wanted to hug her and like love on her. And then eventually I got through that cycle because I had this thought about my father and like taking care of my father. And my father's was homeless. And the moment I had the thought, like, I'm gonna take care of him and I'm gonna get this property, I'm gonna invite him to live with me, and I'm going to rekindle this relationship and heal it, because I don't want him to die, and I just never attempted to heal that. So the moment I had that thought and made that decision in my body, my whole trip opened up, and I started, first I cried, like deep cry. And then I giggled and laughed, and everything was just like perfect. So again, nothing crazy, psychedelic visions or whatnot. That trip I did see flashes of neon and stuff, but it was mostly just like me thinking and me feeling and me addressing things and my shortcomings and how I respond and how I love and how I see the world and how I react. And so that night ended, the 4th night, and I, again, one of the first people to leave. And I walk out into the grass, and it had been raining that night. So off in the distance, I don't know how this happens, but there was a ball of lightning that just kept going off. For like an hour I sat out there, and it was just in the distance. And at the same time, there was a meteor shower and shooting stars galore. So I saw maybe 6 or 7 shooting stars. I saw 2 meteors, lightning bugs, and a ball of electricity just going off. And I interpreted it as like the universe, God was giving me like a firework display. Like, congrats, you finished your 4th night. Like, here is your prize. And then Sage, the man that was next to me, he came out, and me and him had talked like throughout the whole week, but like that night we just like bonded. He told me about his family and his kids and why he was there, and he had that night, he threw up a lot. He was going through, but he came out that night to talk to me, and he told me he didn't know it at the time, but I believe it was a Kundalini awakening where you have intense pleasure. It's an orgasm. You're having a whole body orgasm for a couple hours. He said he saw God. He said he was so in awe and terrified at the sheer presence of this force while he's having this awakening. And it was just such a pleasure to listen to someone get what they wanted from this trip, you know. It sounded like something I wanted, but, you know, you get what you need. You don't get what you want. Then we finally walked back to the room, and side note, every night I got back to my hotel or my room, there was a specific creature waiting for me. So the first night, giant grasshopper by my door. Second night, there was a giant moth. Third night, there was I believe it was a June beetle, but it was gold. And it was stuck in water, and I had the pleasure to like flip it over. And then fourth night, big ass cicada just like slamming itself against my door to the point it lost all its wings. So that to me was significant because I really like animal symbolism. Like if you're aligned and in tune, like numbers will pop up and then animals. You'll start seeing specific animals, and each of those animals have a specific frequency vibration message that the universe is giving you to look into or to emulate. Again, I apologize if I'm all over this. I just didn't know how to navigate 7 days of experience. The next day we have another group share, and I'm like a brand new person. My heart is so open. I am so loving. I'm so slow and present. And in our group share, like I was ready. I wanted to talk. And I thank the universe. I thank the intelligence of God that holds all of this together. I thanked the love I get daily from my family and my partner and my fans that enabled me to have this experience. And again, I went here to heal my father wound and my relationship with my ex. And that, after the group share, well, one of the other trippers came up to me after, and she said, I feel like you're an alien from another planet. And it was such an amazing compliment to have someone tell me that. It was like, yay. I get to my hotel room, and I text my father about, he has no place to stay, so I message him like, are you still looking for a place to live? He said yes. And I invited him to live with me, and the conversation was very light. So it was very, I know this is weird, it was very flirty. It was very like me and my dad just having a good like back and forth. There's no tension, there was no anger. It was just me open and loving, and I wanted to take care of my dad. And we hang up, and this was one of the craziest things that happened. I'm laying in my bed, and I put my hands to the sky, and I just thank God for blessing me with such a beautiful life where I get to have freedom and peace and security and stability, and I don't have to worry about things that a lot of people have to worry about. And as I'm praying, I start to vibrate, and I feel electricity shoot through both of my hands, and I start bawling because I've never experienced that before. And again, this was the day after a trip, so I'm not on any plant medicines. And again, it was such a confirmation, like, good job, Jordan. Like, if more people in the world took care of each other instead of, I get we're all in this survival mode, but if we just put ourselves on the side and realize like what I give to others, what I do for others comes back to me. So if you're an asshole to others, you're gonna get that reflected back to you. But if you are a loving, caring person that cares about the well-being of the world, not just people that can give you stuff or people you're attracted to, just everyone, your life will improve exponentially. And it was just like such confirmation of that knowing I have. I'm positive I missed a lot, but that was the time I had 4 ayahuasca ceremonies in the Costa Rican jungle. I will post the link of Soltara down below in case that is something that interests you. I believe every human should experience a plant medicine journey. I would love to go back. I'd love to do the one in the Amazon. But again, I'm Luna. I love you guys. If you have any questions, please post them down below. I would love to respond to them. Thank you.